and welcome back to the Striha Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Parker Striha, and on today's episode, we are going to be going over my first and only 7-round Green Bay Packers mock draft. I'm by no means professional, but I do love talking about sports, so thank you for joining me. So for this 7-round mock draft, I decided to use Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator on their website, and I just kind of took the pick as I picked the player if they were available at the spot in the mock draft. So I didn't pick any picks prior to any Green Bay picks, so it was all simulated except for Green Bay's picks, which I made myself. So some of these players I don't think will be available at any of Green Bay's picks, and I think will be gone either long before Green Bay picks, or I just don't know if Green Bay would really be interested in general. But these are just players I would really love Green Bay to get. So like I said, these are all just picks that were made as the board fell. So nothing was predetermined. Any of these players could have been long gone by the time I got to these picks. So let's just get into it. With the 22nd overall pick in the first round, the Green Bay Packers select Trevor Penning, a tackle out of Northern Iowa. Now, he is one of the guys I do not see him being available at Green Bay's pick. I think he'll probably go to a team like Baltimore or New Orleans or even, Los Angeles. He'll go to one of those three teams most likely, but if he falls to Green Bay's pick, I personally think they should pull the trigger on that. He's more of a left tackle, but obviously Green Bay has David Bakhtiari at left tackle, but I think they could slide him in at right tackle as the day one starter. He is still a little bit raw, and he is coming from an FCS school. So, the competition he played in college may not be great, but he has really risen up draft boards this year, and he is, in my opinion, a top 4 offensive tackle in this entire class, just behind Ekwonu, Neal, and Cross. And I think it'll really all depend on what happens when Elgton Jenkins comes back, because he did tear his ACL last year, so he will be back at some point during this upcoming season. So I can see them having Trevor Penning play guard. I can see them playing Penning at tackle until Jenkins comes back, and then they play Jenkins at right tackle and put Penning in at one of the guard spots. But I think as of right now, if he's available, Green Bay needs to pull the trigger on that. And then he can be their day one starter at right tackle or either of the guard spots, depending on Elgton Jenkins' health. I think he's a better day one player than Royce Newman is, who was a rookie last year, but that's just me. And I also have Green Bay trading the 28th overall pick along with the 92nd overall pick and the 258th overall pick in this draft, as well as picks in a future draft to the San Francisco 49ers for Deebo Samuel, because as I am recording this, or just before I started recording this, it was announced that Deebo Samuel has requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. So I think Green Bay needs to jump on that and be as aggressive as they can in getting him. I don't really like their receiving room at all, and I think Deebo would immediately be a solid number 1 receiver for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. This could obviously be a guy like A.J. Brown or Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, really any receiver that's been mocked to be traded anywhere this offseason. But I think as of right now, I would prefer it be Deebo Samuel. I just like him a little bit more than those other guys. So with the 53rd overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Trey McBride, a tight end out of Colorado State. Now, this is another pick. I don't think McBride will be available at pick 53, but if he's available, Green Bay needs to jump on it. Robert Tonyan is not their tight end of the future. He's only on a 1-year deal, and he's really not. He doesn't count a lot towards Green Bay's cap this year, and I don't even know how much he's going to play, because he's another guy that's coming back from an ACL tear. And I could see this being his last year in Green Bay, especially if they draft a guy like McBride. McBride is arguably the best tight end in the entire class, depending on who you ask. I really like him. He showed out at the Combine and has just kind of risen up draft boards all year. And I think Aaron Rodgers would really like Green Bay selecting a number 1 tight end for him who can immediately be their day one starter at tight end until Robert Tonyan comes back, and then they'd have to figure it out then. But I think McBride would go into training camp and he would show out and he would solidify that number one tight end spot. With the 59th overall pick in the second round, Green Bay Packers select Chad Muma, a linebacker out of Wyoming. Now, Chris Barnes only has 1 year left on his deal, and I don't really know what the future is for Devondre Campbell. I know they signed him to a big contract, but I think it's an easy contract to get rid of in either a year or two, so I don't know how long he'll last. So I have them taking Muma, who is really scheme versatile. He can play in a 3-4 or a 4-3, and Green Bay runs a 3-4, so I think he'd fit perfectly in there. I think he'd play more of a middle linebacker for them, and he would solidify that spot, especially if they aren't able to bring back Chris Barnes next offseason, because I can see a team overpaying for Chris Barnes because he has been a solid linebacker since coming into the league as an undrafted free agent, but yeah, really, I don't know a lot about Muma. I just know he tested really well at the combine, super athletic, good in coverage, and I would love to see him in the green and gold. Moving on to the fourth round with the 132nd overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Tyquan Thornton, a wide receiver out of Baylor. Now, he's been to Green Bay for a visit. I think they really like him, and if he's available in the fourth round, since they haven't drafted a wide receiver up to this point, pull the trigger on Thornton. He would be probably one of their immediate starters right away. He would work his way up the depth chart. I think they're obviously guys like Deebo Samuel is going to be ahead of him if they actually trade for him. Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins. But I think Sammy Watkins is on a super cheap contract, and if Thornton comes out and he tests and does really well at training camp and during OTAs and all that stuff, I can easily see him taking Sammy Watkins' spot in the depth chart, and I think Aaron Rodgers would really like his size and his deep ball and deep speed ability that he would add to Green Bay's offense. With the 140th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Kobe Bryant, a point guard. No, I'm kidding. Kobe Bryant, a cornerback out of Cincinnati. He was one half of arguably the best cornerback duo in the entire college football league this past year, along with Ahmad Gardner. Although he is the worst of the two, I think he is a really solid outside corner that Green Bay would love. I don't know what Rasul Douglas's future is going to be. I know they re-signed him, but his contract I think is another one that's easy to get rid of in a couple years. So I think if they can work Kobe Bryant in, you can never have too many corners, and you can never have too many good corners. And I think Kobe Bryant would be a really good, solid fourth corner for Green Bay, because especially last year when a guy like Jair Alexander gets hurt, you need that depth. And I think you can play him at really any cornerback spot. But yeah, you need that depth at the cornerback position, because if a guy like Jair gets hurt again, or even if Stokes or Rasul Douglas gets hurt, you need guys that can step up and fill that role and make it look like nothing happened. With the 171st overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Cordell Volson, a North Dakota State tackle. Now, this is another guy I don't think will be available in the fifth. I can see him easily going sometime on day 2 or even early day 3, so like a late second round, even third or fourth round pick. Really solid tackle out of North Dakota State. One of the best linemen I think I've seen them have in the past however many years, since I've really been old enough to understand and really have a love for football. And I mean, he's from North Dakota. He grew up like 25 minutes away from where I grew up. I've camped with him before. He's a great guy, great family. And I think he would fit really well with Green Bay. Now, I don't necessarily know if he has the speed to play tackle in the NFL, so I think he would probably slide into a guard role with Green Bay, but he is an extremely good offensive lineman. He has the size and the mauling ability to be a really solid guard that can open up holes for any of their running backs. And like I said, with corner, you can never have too many good offensive linemen, because if someone gets hurt, you need guys that can step up and fill that role. And I think Cordell could do a really good job of that. With the 228th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Matt Araiza, a punter out of San Diego State. Now, this might be a little bit of a weird pick, and I also don't think Arise is going to be available at pick 228 just because he is that good. He is able to play kicker. He's able to play punter, both at a very high level. I think it was at the Shrine Bowl he was at this offseason, and he showed out. Was one of the best players there. And I think Green Bay, who's not committed to Mason Crosby or Pat O'Donnell long term, they could easily get rid of either one of those two and slide in Ariza. And I think he would be their punter and or their kicker of the future, similar to what a guy like Pat McAfee did for the Colts about a decade ago. And then with the 249th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Marquand McCall, a defensive lineman from Kentucky. Now, I think he does fit. He would probably be used in a similar role to a guy like Kenny Clark or Jerron Reed. He would just be a space filler on that defensive line, I think. He's a really big body. He's obviously not going to take Jerron Reed or Kenny Clark's spot, but he provides a really solid depth defensive tackle that can come in and stuff the run against a lot of these other good running backs in the NFC North, in the NFL in general. Now, that's all the picks I have. And like I said, there's a lot of these guys that will not be available at the picks that I have them going in this mock draft. But that's just how the mock draft simulator panned out. So as always, I'm your host, Parker Striha, and this has been the Striha Sports Podcast. Our random sport fact of the day is that former Indianapolis Colts punter Pat McAfee had a career-long punt of 74 yards. As always, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for whenever a new video gets posted.